Thank you for clicking on our video. This is Taking on the Thames. Completely different day down here today. Last time we was down here we had a solid week of rain literally before we come down. It was the only day where we had a break in the actual rain, and because of that the river was really high and the flow was really strong, and it seemed as though that had put off a lot of the perch. Although I did hook into what felt like, I'm pretty sure it was a perch, and it was an absolute stonker. But as soon as I got that landing net near the water, he slipped the hook. Hence why I'm back down here again today, because that's the second time now that I've lost something decent from this spot. But today the weather feels absolutely perfect for a perch. A lot of cloud, it's a lot calmer than it was before. I mean, sometimes, you know, you do want a little bit of flow on the water, but the last time we was down here it was an absolute joke. If we were fishing in the mainstream, it would have picked the lead up and just taken it straight downstream. But it's way calmer today. It's a little bit mild, a lot of cloud, and to me that says perch. So fingers crossed, today will be the day where we're smashing to a lot more perch, at least more than we did last time anyway. So the pike rod is out there as well. We've got the big boy rod straight out there on some dead roach. Not gonna waste my time in trying to catch the silvers for that before we actually do get started. Let's whack my gloves on just in case we do start smashing into perch nice and early. I've got some ground bait today, but I haven't gone mad with that. I'm literally going to fish it on the feeder today, whereas usually I would come down, put a couple of handfuls of ground bait in, you know, a couple of big balls, and then use a maggot feeder and fish that over the top. Whereas today I think I'm gonna obviously still be using the maggots, but I'm gonna be using the ground bait a lot more in the feeder. So I'm using an open-ended feeder today rather than the closed feeder just filled with maggots. And I'm going to slow down a lot on that now that we are definitely heading into autumn. And it could have also played a part as to why we didn't get as many bites last time we was down here. Maybe I just overfed it when we got here to start with, you know. So we're going a little bit slower on the ground bait, still sticking to the maggots as a hook bait. And again, using slightly different style hooks than what I usually use. Today I'm actually, because of last time and losing that big perch, I've gone for a micro barbed hook. This time, same size 12. And as I said earlier, I'm going to be using an open-ended feeder with some ground bait. The ground bait is a dark river ground bait with a few small pellets, some dead maggots and casters in there. So first chuck of the day. Let's hope there's a lot quicker than it was last time. Still going to be fishing that same area as I was before. I'm not going to start off real close to the tree, because I don't want to, if I do smash into anything half decent early on, I don't want to lose it in the snags under there. I'm not expecting to get bites immediately, but I am also going to be paying a lot more attention this time, just because the fishing was so tough last time I was down here. Probably noticed already, or you will do later at least, that a lot more leaves are starting to drop from the tree now. What I might do today is, as we're not filling the feeder filled with live maggots, these maggots are getting on a bit now, so there's a few casters in there too, which all helps with the variety. Because we're only fishing ground bait in the feeder, I mean, I might stick some maggots in the feeder and then just plug the ends up with ground bait. It's just what I don't want to do is really overcook the ground bait, you know, overdo it with it, and then any fish that are down there will hopefully not get full up on ground bait before they reach the hook bait. I have got some balls already made up of the ground bait for throwing in if it does pick up, but I've made them a lot smaller than I have before. Again, just trying to cut down on the amount of feed that I'm throwing out there, because although the river can fish a lot better than, you know, a day water lake or something when you're fishing for carp in the winter and the autumn, just the colder months, it does die off a little bit, you know. It's not quite as action packed as it can be in the summer. So you want to try and keep that feed down a little bit, just because of course there's not as many fish out there. But weather conditions, hello Rodders, weather conditions do feel pretty good. You alright there, mate? Got some maggots. Might be an idea just to make sure that we haven't got things like that going on for a start. A little tangle. Maybe I'll stick a few more maggots on there already, just to try and get something to come along on the visual aspect of some wiggly maggots. Really is probably the most overcast day that we have fished so far in this series. So it's going to be interesting to see if that does make any difference. Just going to try and build up the swim a little bit. And hope that we spark off a frenzy. And hopefully, like I say, if we start banging into perch at least, it's going to be a lot better than it was last time we were down here. Of course it could flip the other way and we end up with nothing. The old hood's going up already and all because it's getting a little bit nippy round the old ear holes. So far it has definitely been the slowest start that I've had all year. It's been at least an hour now with the rod in the water. Not even so much as a twitchy bite, which is really unusual. I mean, last time it was slow in hooking the fish and getting them in, but today it's just being really slow to even get a bite. Again, just bombarded by small twitches, and when I say small twitches, I mean smaller than even what we usually get. Bizarre. They've done zero damage to the maggots whatsoever. Might be into our first fish here. And what have we got? Juvenile chub time again. So after all that wait, I mean, we're talking about nearly 4 hours now. And this is the first fish of the day, a really tiny juvenile chub, nothing more than a bit of pike bait really. But hopefully maybe things will start picking up now that we've finally started to get them feeding. But with the calibre of bites that I'm getting, I think that this is basically the size of the fish that are down there. But, you know, maybe later on things might start picking up on things that are a little bit bigger than this. So let's chuck this little guy back. Not really worth the wait there, was it? Again, it almost just makes me think that if I knock down the size of hook, then I'd be knocking into a lot more of them, but I just don't want to risk that loss of something that's not the size of that. These micro barbed hooks certainly hung on to him well. It was a bit of a struggle unhooking him there. Probably saw that his bottom lip was bleeding quite a bit. It's one of the reasons why I'm not really massively keen on using anything other than barbless hooks. But the reason for it is because of last time, you know. It can be, I mean, today is a struggle getting any kind of fish. So when you end up losing a decent sized fish like we did last time, kind of makes you do things like, you know, move over to a micro barbed hook rather than a barbless one, just to increase your chances of bringing it in. Too little too late, maybe, but you never know. Today could be the day where, although it's real slow on the smaller stuff, always gives you that time, you know. Sometimes if you're getting bangs after bangs after bangs of tiny little fish, can often mean that they're either stripping the maggots too much or causing too much of a commotion in the swim to attract anything of a better size. So there's always that possibility that today, even though that fish wasn't worth the wait, that later on a bigger fish will have at least a chance to get down there and find that hook bait. What are you doing, Rodney? Enjoying them maggots? Well, I've just seen a pike, not a very big pike. In fact, it was a pretty small pike, but he was right at the surface, just sort of checking out the leaves. But he must have been 3 foot away from where the dead bait is. And he's sort of disappeared now under the murk, so be interesting to see if this starts bleeping off in a minute. It's certainly going to put off the small fish, but hopefully he hasn't gone over into that area. But that's a nice sign that there's at least a pike about. But is it a good sign that he's so close to the surface and not swimming about underneath? I put that roach dead bait on whole, and now I'm kind of wishing I'd cut his head off or something so it would bleed out a bit more. It's been under the water now for, well, since we started, which is got to be a good 4 hours. so the scent ain't gonna be massively strong, I doubt. And of course the trouble is now is if by some chance we do happen to hook anything on this feeder rod right now in the next couple of minutes, the disturbance is probably going to draw him over. The only thing I'm worried about is the fact that he was so close to the surface. This has been so tough today, it really has. Other anglers now have come and gone. They're feeling the pain too. Might only have felt like 15-20 minutes to you guys, but it's been a solid 6 hours out here now with one chub to show for it. Still getting little twitchy bites, but it's going to be from exactly the same thing, this tiny little chub. Felt promising for a little while when we saw a little pike just roaming about, but we cut the head off that roach and mashed the body up a bit to release some oils and blood into the water, and that never attracted him. It hasn't attracted any other pike either. I'm just so confused as to where the perch have gone. I really am. We've been getting a few perch out of this swim. It slowly started dying down, granted, but the perch was still around. Like, there was a point where if I'd caught something, I was too worried to drop my rod back in the water, even just directly in front of me, because I knew that there'd be shoals of perch down there that would come along and gobble it up. But absolutely nothing again on the perch front. I just don't get it. It seems like I get a bunch of small twitches when I first chuck the rod out, and then after it settles down, there's just nothing. It's weird. It's almost like you cast the rod out, you get a shoal of really small fish, and then a pike or something comes along and frightens everything away. My only explanation for it is that if there's anything else in it, then they've got to be higher up in the water column. Yeah. Loads of maggots down there for you now, brothers. Careful now. You nearly decapitated yourself on my line. Right, come on now, fish. Before I just leave the hook down there with these maggots in and try and catch that robin. That'd be a first for me. Things I've caught that aren't fish. I've caught a rat. I was fishing on a river called the Longford, float fishing with bread for chub on the surface, and I was just letting it trot down the river, and then out come from the bushes a rat, a massive rat, and he just swamped up my bread so quick that I didn't have a chance to avoid it. That was not fun, I can tell you. I've caught a duck at Twiner's fishery on the bottom using boilies. I caught a fox on the Thames, but that wasn't on a piece like this, it was actually on a tidal piece. And where I started, I was standing up on the bank and the tide was in. And I cast out and it was all just starting to die down, much like it has done today, as the tide was going out. And then the tide went all the way out, so I started reeling my rod in, And then as the feeder was bouncing across the pebbles, a fox come darting out from behind a boat that was just resting on the shore. Picked up my feeder and done a runner with it. I caught a kingfisher, but that was in my landing net. I had my landing net just drying, hanging up against my bivvy, and a kingfisher just went diving straight into it. So a robin would be something new. So be careful, Rodney. I'll see you up there. If things carry on the way they are, mate, you'll be the only thing I'm fishing for. Right, well, approaching last knockings now, guys. It's getting to around that time where I had that monster perch in the last episode, or lost that monster perch in the last episode. So it's the last hope now, really. Of course, the old pike rod could still go tearing off, but I must say, with the day that we've had fishing today, I'm not keeping my hopes up too much that anything's going to happen with that. The bait's still on there, I've checked it, but hopefully we'll get at least something else on the feeder rod now before we have to go. Whether it's a big old perch or another juvenile chub, your guess is as good as mine. But we're definitely heading into the witchy hour now. It's a Friday night, parties are starting on the boats over the way there. Oh, don't be a dick. I mean, and it's a better fish again. It's around this time, please. Please, please, please. Please don't. I haven't got enough drag for that, buddy. I haven't got enough drag for that. Oh my word, would you but Adam and Eve it. Oh, it's a pike. If I get this in, I will be massively surprised. But I have. Of all the things, and of all the times, and maybe this is what done me last time, we have just caught ourselves a pike on maggots. Let's check him out. Well, would you actually Adam and Eve it? We have managed somehow or another to get a pike on a size 12 hook and 4 maggots, beautifully hooked, actually right in the scissor, as you can see there, with his maggot in his eyeball, which was lucky, because if he was hooked any other way, he would no doubt have snapped up this mono. I say mono, fluorocarbon. It's actually quite hard to get this little size 12 out of him. I don't want to be wiggling my fingers around there too much. There it goes. Tiny size 12 on double maggot with nothing but fluorocarbon as a hook trace, while we've actually got a wire trace out there. Now, I noticed some damage on this guy. His gills are not in good condition at all this side, so I don't know if someone else has actually hooked him earlier on today and messed him up again messed him up a bit. But his gill plate is not in good condition at all. Don't quite understand what's happened there. It almost looks as though that's been cut from someone who's possibly had a wire trace on with a treble and couldn't get it out and just cut his gill, clean it off. But he seems to be suffering, well, not suffering, he seems to be dealing with it okay. Chill out now, little fella. Can't really get him under the gill because I don't want to damage it any more than it already is. This could possibly be the little fella that I saw swimming about on the top earlier. But can you believe it? On the maggots, on the size 12, while we're sitting there with a dead bait, literally waiting for a pike to come along. Is it possible that this was the mystery fish that we caught last time and it wasn't a big perch? Could be. Is this possibly the mystery fish that we had the time before that and we snapped up on it? Again, possibly could be. Now, I've seen pike get caught on maggots before, but I have never personally done it myself. But I guess I can tick that one off the list now. What an absolute surprise on the feeder rod. Let's waste no more time and we'll slip him straight back. I'm going to put him in the net so we can recover a little bit with that dodgy gill. Kind of almost made the trip, well, certainly better at least. But I'm just wondering now if this guy has been the cause of as to why it's been so quiet. If he was the one that we saw earlier mooching around near the top. Now, you ain't got to worry about this net. It's a latex net, so his teeth and that ain't going to get caught up in it. Even though it looks like a small carp net, it is actually a proper pike net, so there's no worries about that. He seems to be doing okay. I don't actually want him to swim over that way because I know for a fact that there's someone's crappy old deck chair under the water. And away. He's just going to sit there now. So, would you Adam and Eve it, guys, honestly? What a weird old day today. I've said it so many times in this season already. Today, if it weren't for that pike, would have been a really sucky day. But what a nice surprise that was, and what a luck it was to get him in. I panicked so bad when I see him down there. I saw a little flash of colour, I thought, oh, this is going to be a really nice chub. And then his little head poked up and I thought, oh no, it's a pike, and how am I going to keep this on with just fluorocarbon as a hook trace? But luckily we got him right in the scissors. Feel a little bit sorry for him that someone's butchered his gills like that. It's there's no other explanation for it really. You could see, I mean, I don't know if you could see, but I could certainly see that it was a clean cut in the gill. And it was flapping out. It weren't just damaged like it was torn or anything. It's a clean cut, as if someone's literally either cut it to get a treble hook out. Who knows? But that's very weird. It don't look like something that would just occur naturally. You know what I mean? It's definitely looks like someone who's, like I say, probably got him with a treble hook and mutilated him to get their gear back. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I use the circle hooks now, because you know there's been so many times where I've struggled to unhook pike because they've gutted a big treble hook, or you know, which is just the manner of the way that they take a bait. Usually we're just so lucky that we got that one in the scissors with that tiny hook, and especially with maggots you would have thought he'd just gulp them down, but very weird. Unfortunately, he's a bit damaged, but he's pretty damn strong. No blood, so it didn't look like it was freshly cut. So I hope he's going to end up to be able to grow into a big old double figure pike. But again, a really disappointing day. Apart from that, the silvers were not behaving themselves at all. The perch were non-existent again. No roach again, but I'm kind of getting used to that. And as for taking on the Thames, well, today it really kicked our ass. But you know, we've got to think about tactics going into the future. What do we do? Do we continue with the maggots? Is it worth, you know, using these slightly bigger hooks to try and get a nice perch and a better chub with them, knowing that we're going to constantly get harassed by smaller fish? Do we change the bait and use something like sweet corn? Or do we just wait until, you know, it comes to the time where things are going to start getting darker a lot quicker? We're kind of in that situation now where it's not getting dark really early, but you know, I was kind of just hoping that sitting here from 7 o'clock this morning that we would still be able to knock some out in the daytime, but maybe we've got to start focusing on times a bit later on now, so we're here for a good period of time once it hits, you know, dark and whatever, and maybe then will be the times when we start knocking into some of the bigger perch, bigger chub and things like that, maybe a possible barbel and whatever. So you know the score by now. I've been Mark Payne and this be taking on the Thames, and I will see you later.